We got the whole crew back together. Hello, everybody. But I do see a couple new faces. So welcome if you are new to the Fraudcast and this is your first time. Big welcome. We are very excited to have you. For all of the people who join us on a regular basis, so nice to see your faces. We have a really special cast for you guys today. I'm super excited for Vito to intro our guest and to talk a little bit more about Agentic and answer your questions. So super excited. But yeah, you guys know the deal. But for the new folks, this is a weekly session that Vito and I host to talk about everything fraud risk, usually around, the e-commerce space. And this is a space for you to bring your questions. Yes, we come in with a specific topic in mind. However, if you are dealing with something, this week, something that is top of mind for you, you have questions, you want to get answers from people who have probably gone through the same things as you, are going through them right now, other, knowledgeable professionals such as yourselves. This is the place to bring those questions. Feel free to speak up at any time. You don't have to worry about interrupting. This is more of a conversation. So please feel free to come off mute and be part of the conversation and ask your questions. And if you want to, you could just throw questions in the chat too. But like I said, you're welcome to just come off mute and talk with us. If you're able to be on camera, we love it. If not, that's totally fine. You can listen in like a podcast or things like that. And keep in mind that we do record these sessions for folks that are not able to join us at this time. We share these recordings out so that people could catch up on all the great information that they missed. So just keep that in mind as we're chatting. Another thing that I want to throw out there is that for the new folks is we do have a Slack channel that you can join. I will throw the link in the chat for you to request to join. It is closed community for, the people that are really part of the Fraudcast community, the Fraudcast family. It's a really great space to talk outside of these regular meetings every Wednesday. If something comes up throughout the week and you don't want to save it for the following Wednesday, that's totally fine. You could throw your questions in there and connect with folks who are part of this community. So I will throw the link in that chat if you would like to join. And with that being said, I'm going to hand things over to Vito.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. So good to see you. We are ready to roll. I'm so excited today. Last week, I was out with my wife. It was her birthday. Happy birthday, Vito's wife. Great to see you. We got chickens. We got all sorts of stuff from the fancy store that she likes to go to. I was a good husband, but you know what? We're back, and we're back with a vengeance. Today is a fraudcast of all fraudcasts. Why is that? We have a super special guest today, not only in clout, not only in name, not only in accomplishments, but in what this person can show you, can bring into your life today. Because we've talked about this ad nauseum. You're so sick of it. You're so sick. I'm doing the Elvis here with the microphone. You're so sick of hearing all about Agentic. You're so sick of hearing about how it's going to ruin the world and you're not ready and all that. We're going to put that to bed today. Oh, that felt good. We're going to put that to bed today. So for everybody here at the Fraudcast today, Becca, Bradley, Paula, what's up? Riley, Delana, BAUJXF1, that was my grandma's name. Shelly, Emma, Allie, Miss D in the limousine, Jamie, Ryan, Jared, Blaze, Becca, Marcy, Justin, Maddie, Alexa, and Nicole and Ian. I present to you someone who probably needs very little in terms of an introduction, but I'll try my best anyway. He is a runner, a thinker, a doer, an Antipodean. There's my $5 word for the day. He is the head of product at Kasada, a future thinker, a current state doer. My friend, your soon-to-be very good friend, maybe best friend, the one and only Jonathon Hope. Jono, how's it going, brother?
G'day, everyone. How's it going? All the way from Australia here. I'm loving the community. I love it. Everyone's so friendly.
Have you here. Thanks for diving in. I did my best there, but I left a lot uncovered. You are a busy man and you've done a lot of things. And I think it's really worthwhile for everyone here to kind of know what you've been up to and what you're doing. So why don't you give us your take on, instead of the screaming and gesticulating thing that I just did, how would you describe yourself, John?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, thinker, doer, practitioner, like probably many of you here. I'm keen to understand this world that we're in, fraud, abuse, how we're going to solve it. It's kind of not a solved problem in the world right now, but maybe we can all work better together and figure out better ways to do that. And that's really what I've been doing for the past 10 years at Kasada, taking it from this hatchling with Sam and co when we were 3 people in a shipping container, all the way up to, where we're at now with many, many more faces, some on this podcast. So, yeah.
Love to hear it. Now, by the way, I've met Jono before. Okay, so we talk. We're cool. If I'm bragging, we're homies a little bit. This is not about me today. This is about y'all. So at any moment, please, we're all family here. You get it. I don't want to see the raised hands. Jenna invited you to put things in the chat. I love the introduction in the chat. We're beyond that though. Just come off mute, jump right in, interrupt me, interrupt Jono. That's cool too, right, Jono? It's all right to be interrupted here. Just interrupt away. We're answering questions today because I always put him on the hot seat, but it's in many ways a cool throne for him. My brother Jared brought up something earlier in the week about a certain pizza parlor and an AI agent that was kind of doing all the answering, trying to imitate somebody at a pizza parlor or trying to imitate a fine Italian American, which hits a little close to home. They're even doing the AI agent was even doing this, I think, which was a little too much for me, man. That's where I draw the line. But a little birdie tells me, Jono, that we're already seeing the impersonation element come into agentic fingerprints, agentic headers and URL strings, people impersonating or bots impersonating ChatGPT. What's that all about? That sounds like really heavy tech speak, but like, what does that mean for everyone who's on the ground here thinking, hey, what's coming in? What's going out? Can I trust this? Like, where did I just hear that wrong? Or is that like what's going on in this world today?
Of course. You can think of it like anything can be spoofed. Anything that's, not cryptographic or, something that is just a header, a user agent. We've seen this many, many times before. Even in the old world of more like traditional bot management, where you had, adversarial bots, anyone could pretend to be Chrome. Anyone could pretend to be Firefox. And in the same way, anyone can pretend to be ChatGPT agent. That's now changing though, because there's different ways to like verify these things that are a lot more secure. And so from that, you can kind of discern the difference between what is actually ChatGPT agent coming from OpenAI's platform and what is, just someone, Joe Blog down the street, operating a bot trying to do something nefarious or not. So we see a huge amount of traffic across, many, many billions of requests each week. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of the adversaries are starting to try their luck with, the world has gone crazy with agentic. They've got that bug, if you will. Everyone's got the hype, either at either end of the extreme, and people are just trying to see what they are able to get away with. Can I pretend to be Claude? Can I pretend to be ChatGPT agent? Perplexity, you name it, anything. And some of the agents are also not being true to who their own identity as well. You see some of this with I won't name names, but yeah, like you definitely see different agents actually kind of behind the scenes pretend to be different things in order to maybe secure the content that they're after. Yeah, so there's a full spectrum of what's happening there.
It's worrisome, I think, because if I quote some people who are near and dear to me, rhymes with Belly Boosie, Shelley Susie. I always think about what Shelley says in many ways, but I think about when we first started talking about agentic, Shelley was just like, bring it on. Like, and I feel like most merchants are feeling it too. Like, bring it on. we don't know what it looks like, but we want to see it. So we get a sense of like what's good and bad because we're just hearing so much about it. But Jono, what I'm feeling right now and what the group feels, and by the way, group, please, I will be taking a sip of water in a second and I'll be letting you go for it. And I'll be telling you, we don't mistake silence for antipathy here. And you know the whole spiel. But what the group is really getting at recently is like, okay, we want to bring it on, but how do we see it? Like, where do I look? What does it look like? What even is a header? Like if we start from scratch, if I'm in e-commerce and I'm saying headers, like, okay, I played soccer. It rang my bells. I was doing too many headers and that's why I have trouble spelling my name now. You know what I'm saying? Like, what even is this thing? Where can I find it? I think people might confuse them with email headers as well. So if we could go like all the way back to that and start there. And maybe, by the way, we're doing tangents here. If anyone has had success in finding these things and looking for these things, feel free to chime in. So Jono, like where would you point somebody here to like start looking in the metadata? What is a header? 101.
What is a header? When you open your browser, you open a new tab and you type in some sort of www.example.com, one of your e-commerce websites, for instance, your browser sends a request to the server, and in it, there's a bunch of metadata that says, I am Chrome, I am coming from, these basic infos with this timestamp and so on. Those are headers. Sometimes when you do something like logging in, it'll contain also a body, and the body is just like the data that's your credentials, like email and password. And the whole internet is built out of that. And so when we say headers, in the context of like ChatGPT agent, there are new headers that they add that kind of allow them to be identified, and we can go which direction from here. So if you're thinking about like you're an operator of an e-commerce website, maybe we'll start there. You will see your web servers will see tons of stuff, requests from all over. And really what we're talking about here is how amongst all of that stuff can you identify like which ones are agents, which ones are real people using browsers, and so on. And so that's kind of where you may need help with that. There are tools on the internet, various kinds, open source and not, that can kind of help you identify these things. There are new emerging standards for how you might cryptographically prove that something is who it says it is. And that's kind of the emerging standards that are being developed now for agents. There's an entire track in the standards committee for the Internet Task Force to try and prove that something is who it says it is, because this problem is so pervasive. And what that matters for you, if you're an e-commerce or fraud practitioner, is if you can understand who they are, or rather like identify them reliably and verify that they're not being impersonated, then that's a step towards being able to trust them. Something that does not identify itself is inherently less trustworthy than something else. And I'll pause there, Vito.
Well, I'm going to jump in real quick, and then I'm going to take the big pause, because we always talk about cohortizing things here. $8 word, cohortizing. I think what Jono's getting at is, it's not a binary thing, right? It's not like, okay, got the header, cool, let it rock and roll. We've done the technique out here where we say, we're going to take all of our traffic and we're going to put it into granular segments. For all the Susie School of Communications graduates here, for all of the Fraudcast University folks, you've been doing this for a minute now. The way I like to look at traffic is through header strings, and I'll make bands. I'll say this string, right? The Chrome 115.7, they're funky. There's all sorts of stuff in there. People who are using like this device type, people who are coming off of these IP types, I'll grossly cohortize these things. And then I'm not going to just say approve or decline these. I'll start figuring out what my approval rate is in that band and what my loss rate is in that band. And each band will have different levels of risk. If there's an operant gross loss rate, like a baseline, let's call it 10 bips. If I see something at 100 bips, that is inherently, do the math, 10 times riskier than everything else. So maybe I have to focus my efforts there. If something is, 6 bips, 5 bips of gross loss rate, I'm like, well, there's not a lot of loss there. So if I'm declining anything, maybe I should approve a little bit more. But this is the parameters for the kind of granular segmentation we do. Headers, header information, any sort of user agent strings that we can inject into the analysis that we do in e-commerce risk allows us to have a better idea as to what our risk profile is like, where our traffic is coming from, to allow us to be those journalists doing that who, what, when, where, why, and how, to better report out, to better decision, etc. So I'm going to take a 2-second sip of this Ogallala Aquifer well water that I've got right here before it dries out, because the data centers are coming here to suck all our water dry in the Panhandle, my friends. But don't you worry, I'm going to the mayor's office in Amarillo next week to have a talking to Mayor Stanley, a great man, a friend of the show, about how we could save our water. So I'm going to take a sip of this water. While I sip this water, are you doing this today? Please let me know. If you're not, this is a safe space. Are you able to get header information? Are you incorporating this into your investigations? Is this part of your scope, your purview? Think about it, talk about it, and I'm going to sip away.
So I am learning about agentic AI, and I am not familiar with the e-com space because I'm more fraud in the financial background. But I'm curious, when it was talked about figuring out how you can identify who's an actual AI agent versus who's using the browser like a human, compared to the methods now that e-com merchants use for their risk investigations, how would that alter how online account takeover is observed now versus before agentic AI really started making an appearance?
Yeah, great question. I think it introduces new data, firstly. So now there's a new thing, so you need a new data to be able to identify it. You also need to kind of understand more about the chain of what's happening. So, for example, I'm sure you've all heard about things like ChatGPT instant checkout, where a user of ChatGPT, if you haven't heard of it, can go in and say, I want to find a pot that has this color, and so on, and it will go off to find that pot for them. And if the merchant supports that, like the e-commerce stack behind the scenes, then it will use a credit card that's stored in the ChatGPT kind of ecosystem, and it will automatically purchase that on your behalf, and it will fill out all of your details, your fulfillment, like your name, your address, where you want it shipped to. And so for you, I think on the other side of that transaction coming through, there's a whole bunch of like context that you would want to have. And so there's new protocols that both the payment networks like Visa, MasterCard, the payment fraud players like Signified, and the sort of perimeter of your website, or whoever the actual merchant is, in this case, like let's call them Nike, Peloton, whomever, they might need sort of to see from their various bot detection platforms, is this actually an agent or not? And so at each layer, you're identifying, like, is this an agent, and does that change, your risk level? At the moment, there's not a lot of agentic commerce per se, in terms of like people using agents to buy stuff automatically on their behalf. And that's because it's a really foreign idea. It's like very new. Do you trust someone to buy you a dress? Many people would say no. And so I think there's a similar thing with agents. Like, you have to trust something. And that's both on the consumer side and on the merchant side. So hopefully, does that make it a little less murky?
It does. And I do have a follow-up question regarding chargebacks too. So let's say in the event it's not so foreign and it starts to slowly integrate, just like AI did, whether we're ready or not. Um, Friendly fraud is still, to me, one of the things that could metastasize in volume because you could have somebody say, I did give instructions to the agent to buy this, but I didn't
Yes.
do it. So I would feel like there's complication there because it is authorized. But if you're saying it's not, then what would that look like for the merchant regarding representment? Because like everything's there, but if the customer's saying they didn't do it, but then it is authorized, what would that look like in the fight?
Yeah, that was actually I think it might have been Ali or Nicole that pointed this out to me, but um it will start with terms and conditions, because terms and conditions is something you can control without technology. Um, and so a lot of what the payment networks are doing, like Visa and MasterCard, is instituting new policies that say, like, someone can't just back out if they, committed to do this transaction. Someone can't back out. Like, you're not getting out of chargeback by reversing that. If friendly fraud occurs. But I think that won't be completely satisfying for a lot of merchants, because they'll want to offer a much better experience than that. And just like people change their mind, you might have the person agent relationship kind of change as well. And so I expect there'll be new standards that get developed. And this is why, like, maybe everyone shouldn't fear as much right now what's really happening, because this is such a small percentage of what's happening in the world. And there's a lot of, like, we almost have to bootstrap a new e-commerce stack, a new payment standard. And that is essentially what's happening behind the scenes. So the best thing that you guys can do is just to keep up with it, to monitor it, to try things out, to run little experiments. It's not like tomorrow 50% of your income is going to come from agentic. And so, like, but that said, it could over the next couple of years. And so that's kind of the thing to gear up and prepare for. I'll pause again, but yeah, that's kind of the way we see it.
Miss D, what you just did right here was set the table for a beautiful meal. And we're about to feast. I'm rolling up the sleeves. I'm about to dig in. I'm using my hands. We're family here. I don't care. Okay. This is the future, right? But we're prepping now. I was talking to my good friend Ryan McDonald about it this morning. I'm going to take the mask off. I never have the mask on anyway. My only goal, I feel like, in my professional life, and maybe my biggest goal in life, is this community, this little world that we've built here. I want to see everyone successful here. Okay. I want everyone to get new jobs. I want everyone to get promoted. I want everyone to be able to put food on the table and to kind of actualize themselves, to see the giants within them. And I lead these conversations because I know that this is something that's a few years off. Perhaps it could be 12 months, whatever, but it's a little bit in the future. This group, though, right here, all 28 of you who are held hostage in this room right now, like, you are going to be the movers and shakers of something that nobody can really grasp right now. It's like Jell-O, and everyone's trying to grab it. Really gross. It's going through their fingers, but we've got like the big scoop. I don't know how to land that metaphor, but if we're going to prep now for the future, Ms. D put two beautiful things on the table, right? We're talking ATOs and we're talking about bots who are kind of getting into accounts. I did this on GPT not long ago. I said, I think I have an account on like ASOS.com, and I think it might have been this email address. Can you just like check it out if like this one works for me? And it started doing it. I even got spooked and I like shut the computer down. I was like, I don't want to be doing that kind of like that dirty work. And then the second thing is chargeback representment. If we take a deep breath, though, it's like this. If I don't have the signals, if I can't see the header, the information, if I don't have a grasp on these like emerging standards that are coming through and what is really authenticated, what string is coming in that shows that sort of level of authentication, I can't, number one, formulate what my defense is for ATOs, right? Because invariably I'm going to have to take some sort of risk. I'm going to say, okay, Blaze has always interacted with me this way. Now he's logging in through GPT, or GPT is like logging in for him or something like that. I'm going to have to say first time, he's going to be cool. But maybe if he starts, swapping cards out and doing something else in conjunction with this header, that could be a risk signal. And I'm going to look at him a little bit more scrupulously. Secondly, our friend Emma Linane is here, the great red box artist herself. Okay. When I'm disputing chargebacks, when I'm going for representment, right, I am going to have to come up with everyone's favorite word, compelling evidence, right? And part of that compelling evidence is going to be some ironclad legalese that says, hey, when they're on Agentic, when they're doing things through an agent, they have, they've had the terms and conditions put in front of them. At some point, the agent was made aware of this. They consented. Therefore, no soup for you, my friend. So my question becomes to you, Jono, what are you building? What have you built right now that can empower folks that are here to get that information, to understand that traffic a little bit better, and then to feed these kind of investigative motions like mitigating ATO, like fighting chargebacks with a little bit more pep in your step, and doing anything else to get a better view as to the agentic landscape?
Yeah, sure. So you can't govern what you can't see. And so if you think about what needs to be done, you can't trust the client per se. You can't trust that who they are is who they say, they are who they say they are. But there may be methods to attempt to do that. And some are more reliable than others. And this is moving very, very quickly. So what Kasada has done is built out like sort of a directory, almost like a phone book, of all the agents and all the different, call them AI traffic platforms. So there's a difference, for example, with someone using ChatGPT agent and just ChatGPT for search. And so we distinguish between each of these things, and we have different ways to verify that they are, the identity that they say they are, and also verify those who are not. So if it's not actually ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other long tail of other agents that are on the market, we give you that insight. So it's first visibility, and it's secure visibility in that sense. So like we're guaranteeing that if we say that it's ChatGPT agent, that it actually is. And the thing that a lot of the web analytics that you guys are probably looking at today is that won't tell you that, because, all of that data can kind of be spoofed and you're trusting the client's interpretation of that. So you need to trust kind of the server side. The next thing that we've given people is a way to govern that, which is to say what those things can and cannot do on a endpoint or category of type of thing that your website can do. So let's make that a little clearer. Something like 80 to 90% of this, entire world today, it's actually probably a lot higher. We see it vary by customer, but it's mostly search. Like if you talk about what agentic commerce is today, and I think Vito, you guys spoke about this like a couple of weeks ago. It's enabling someone to do a completely different kind of search, to find something in the ether that, like, of the long tail of the internet, that matches exactly what they're looking for. I'm going camping this weekend. I need to find a Mozzie Zapper that I've never heard of. Pluck that from the internet for me, Mr. AI, and then they go to the website, wherever it may be, and decide to buy it themselves. they're not using the agent to go buy it automatically for them. That might be coming, sort of down the track. But at the moment, I think the biggest thing that like a lot of e-com, travel, hospitality, anyone who's interacting with a particular audience who might be using these tools can do is just to allow people to access or search for their products, with ChatGPT or with any of their AIs that they're using. And that is way less risky and not the same as saying you can create 1,000 accounts and you can log into every one of our users and do ATO with these things. And so per what you were saying before, Misty, I think, you can have one side of this, but not the other. So if you're not ready, if you don't feel like you have all of your eggs in your basket, in terms of being ready to control the risk, you could allow search, but not allow checkout, as it were. And that is essentially what we built. So visibility, verification, and governance through permissions, like granular permissions on exactly what they can do on your website.
Governance is so important right now because I think as we're all sitting here and trying to figure out, is it happening? Can I see it? I think Jamie had an amazing kind of like jaw-dropping comment in the chat here. I talked to a lead cybersecurity engineer about if we're prepared for identifying these transactions, and he said, kinda, and we haven't had any yet. So, I think a lot of people don't even know what they're not seeing, and I want all of us to think of, I'm going to get all techie here, right? Boil the ocean and synergies and stuff like that. But the upstream component of all of it, we are sitting so far downstream from the firewall, from the perimeter. And it could be most likely that some things are just being blocked wholesale before they're even coming to the cart. They can't get to the cart. So maybe it's not that you don't have the visibility, but maybe there's a level of governance that is like Sister Maria at the Catholic school I went to back at the dances. You had to dance 5 feet away from somebody. You had to leave room for the Holy Spirit. And maybe we need to start doing like the cha-cha slide a little bit more, We need to get a little bit closer. So Sister Maria, God bless you. I'm sorry to bring you up in this broadcast here, but Jono, are you feeling that too, where it's kind of like, hey, we've been a little too stringent, little too conservative about the bots that we allow in? Maybe it's time to get better conversations going with our CISO and everybody else who's kind of involved in that perimeter detection layer. And then is there a little bit of sympathy for the CISO because it's like, dude, we're being scraped to the nth degree right now. So like, how would you respond to that? But also, how would you advise us who are maybe not so tight with the not in the bad, we don't have beef with the CISO, but we don't like, we're not like in the same cubicle. Oh, that's weird. Or maybe we're not like, you know what I'm saying? Like we're not on the same team, so to speak. How do we start that conversation, and what should we be thinking about or talking about there?
Yeah, I'll probably break this up into 3 parts. One, I totally empathize with both sides. On the one hand, you don't want security or fraud teams to have way more work to do when they're already drowning. Probably most people are feeling that way. We certainly feel that way internally. There's just constant fraud and abuse, and if only we could solve it and make it go away. That definitely feels quite stressful. And whilst it's true, Agentic is helping everything, the bad guys and the good guys like yourselves, they're sort of canceling each other out at the moment, or it could at least feel that way. On the other hand, people don't want to lose their audience to someone else. So if your audience is slowly trickling up in ChatGPT and so on, away from like this, I don't know, multi-billion-dollar industry of SEO and e-commerce stacks that have traditionally been built, that's a big change. And whether you're a real estate listing or a shoe store, anything, you're worried about that as the driver's seat of that audience and converting them to paying customers. So what I kind of say to a lot of the people that we talk to in our customer base is, a step you can take today is to block all of the things, the dangerous actions that you think you should not allow. Creating lots of accounts. We don't want fake account creation to go unmitigated. If that's like a particular fraud, concern that you're already drowning with, don't make it worse. But that doesn't mean over here you have to block all product discovery and search experience for real users. You can have your cake and eat it too. You can have those both be true. As you get more controls and decide your strategy, get more visibility is probably the first step. Try things, feel like you've actually got a handle on it. You can add like more to what users can do with agents. And that's how you can kind of feel like you don't have to solve the entire world at the same time as getting started. I think the third part for me is this is a time in our history where it makes sense to talk to one another more than ever before, because it's actually not true that either extreme, the story at either extreme is completely 100% true. Yes, there are cases where there's extremes at either end, but for the most part, the answer's somewhere in the middle. And I think I gave that to you in the opening, Vito, the other week.
It's for sure. And I mean, you're talking about being an agent of change here, or an agent of transformation. Everybody, as we're evolving our roles, as we're getting new jobs, we all got to help each other out here, right? As we're evolving our roles and getting new jobs, I love what Jono's putting out here, because we're going to start from ground zero, where you're cool to search, like search away, my friends. And that helps you on the fraud side be like, hey, we see X amount of orders coming in with these referral headers or these referral URLs saying they came from GPT. I'm going to take that and give that to marketing. I'm going to take that and give that to product. I'm going to take that and give that to anyone who handles the website at all, and saying, look at the spike here. Look what they're going after. Look what's really hot in the agents right now. Cool. Where'd you get that from, Ben? Like, that's really awesome stuff. Well, I see it here. Okay. Are we seeing fraud on there? Well, no. In fact, like most people who come through on referral, they're actually like the savviest of shoppers. However, they're getting their hands on like promo codes without having to dig for it. So maybe our defenses need to be a little bit more around like promo code protection when it comes to a chat initiated or referred order. And then you could start opening up the floodgates for other things, but it begins with being able to identify this stuff. Okay. I love 4 products on earth. I love Bridge 10 milligram nicotine pouches. They're my favorite. I love Signified. I love Scope now, because when you got to get cracking and you got to figure out what's going on in this crazy and dirty and messy world, and you want to know the ups and downs and the ins and outs of everything, Scope now's got everything in place. And I love Kasada. Okay. And I'm not saying that. Jono did not send me this 10 milligram pouch. I bought it with my own. This Fraudcast is not for sale, my friends. Okay. So in the waning moments here, Jono, how could someone get started with you if they're just trying to say, hey, look, I'm not ready to dive into the Kendrick Lamar swimming pool full of liquor and drown in it, right? But I am ready to like dip my toes in, because I want to be able to do some reporting. I want to be the journalist of the group and say who, what, when, where, why, and how. Maybe Ms. D wants to open the floodgate. Ms. D's ready to roll, ready to roll, ready to roll. We love it, Ms. D. So how did they get started with you? Where do they find you? And what's like the baby steps here? Instead of like brain surgery. Yeah. What's like the first move? How do you fix the hangnail? Gross, but how do you do that?
Funny analogy at the end there. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, the players in the bot detection space or at the perimeter are the best place to be able to kind of identify this stuff, because that's where the traffic is coming in and hitting your website or your APIs, all of that jazz. So that's kind of where Kasada sit. We identify traffic, the good and the bad. And historically, that has just been bots and humans. But now it's kind of, got other stuff in it. It's got AI traffic, we'll call it. And so for a lot of our customers, we've tried to make it super, super easy for them. There's a bunch of defaults for the different agents and AI traffic sources, I guess you could say. And we have made it easy to have like read-only kind of permissions for product pages and things like that by default. You can turn that off if you don't want that. You can also control that differently and customize it however you want for different agents. Maybe, and we provide some insight into this because Perplexity may not be as trustworthy as OpenAI or Claude. Many of you may have seen what's happening in the news recently, and we won't get too much into that. But you can reach out to Nicole and Ali on the call here. They help customers kind of get onboarded. If you're not a customer today, and if you are, sing out if you want some help. But also, if you just want to chat and have advice, I'm very, very open to helping anyone out. Just more generally, you don't have to buy anything. Yeah.
Fine. Listen, with a name like Jonathon Hope, it's hard to hide out there on the internet. I've got a name too that's kind of hard to hide unless you're looking for certain unlicensed plumbers in the Northeast. You'll find plenty of them with this name. But in the waning minutes here, okay, I want to open up to the crew before we go anywhere. Anyone with a burning question for Jono, here's your time to shine, my friends. I have another sip of water to take before we get going. Please fire away.
I don't want to be selfish, but I have a question, but
Do it.
Okay. Don't tell me with a good time. So I have it in the chat, but I'll also reverb it here. So in terms of agentic AI and completing tasks before purchases are completed, what happens if a customer prompts the bot? The bot locates the site for the customer and it has a profile. So example like ASOS.com. The login information is stored in the browser, but the client's computer was compromised. The friction may be in place to prevent the transaction from being initiated, but the customer's information is now compromised because now they have their payment information stored because they just love ASOS. So how would that be tackled? And am I getting ahead of myself?
No, like I said, Mr. You cannot trust the client. And so maybe I'll post a link in the chat to everyone about a good blog on this. The guy has a little bit of a spiff, but he has a really good point, which is that prompt injection is a feature. It cannot be mitigated. We're playing language games with these agents, meaning you can tell it to or convince it to do almost anything. And also the supply chains of these things, the skills, the Claude skills, the MCPs, the whatever else that you customize this with, it's all in the same language, human text. So you can tell it to download malware. Every website suddenly becomes a prompt injection, vehicle, maybe by accident or maybe on purpose. So we'll absolutely see like agentic browsers with stored credentials, to your point, like having, I guess, getting compromised because there's malware on the machine or anything else. But that's no different to someone using a browser today. So like that's already a problem. It's no different. It's just that I think it becomes a slightly higher risk with agents, particularly agentic browsers like OpenAI Atlas, Perplexity Comet, the Claude for Chrome, the Gemini for Chrome, or all of those things. By the way, not all of them do you have to trust. And then secondly, you don't have to allow login. So you could just say no. There's some trade-offs there. But I think where the industry, just one last point for me, is certainly where we're moving and where the industry is moving is anomaly detection on those things, so that you can kind of detect if suddenly a browser's, if someone's using an agent and suddenly they start doing a lot of different things than they normally wouldn't do. Well, that's just like fraud detection. It's the same kind of problem. So I'll leave it there.
We learned a lot today, but you're not off the hot seat just yet, Jono, which in many ways has been a very cool throne for you this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever we are. A little bit from the chat here, from the crew, a little bit of a jazz fingers slash, applause for our friend Jono for coming out and hanging out with us today and being part of the family here. I would love in this waning moment here if you can fill us with your ideas, your message for peace and hope and inspiration for this future, or perhaps dread, despair, and fear, whatever you're feeling. Where do you see this all going? If you don't mind my asking, I was actually talking to a good friend of mine, Ryan McDonald, today, and I had a feeling that, well, everyone was going to start throwing AI agents into pretty much everything. And they were going to break pretty much everything and fire everyone else while they're at it. And then in about 10 years' time, they're going to come back, hire the humans, try and fix everything. But just like the Saturn V rocket, we're going to have forgotten how to rebuild everything. So it's going to be a kind of like a what moment. How do you see this all shaping up? Do you have that kind of vision whatsoever, or are you just like, Vito, shut up, I'm ready to roll? So what are you thinking for the future? What kind of words can you leave us on? It's been an absolute pleasure to have some time with you today, and thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll focus on agentic commerce just because I think the whole nebulous world of AI and AGI and jobs lost and so on, it's very a lot of people have commented on that, and I think governments and other things are going to get involved when things change too much. However, for agentic, you could think of it maybe as some analogies. You want to book a travel with your girlfriend or your husband or whatever. It could go out, find kind of like more of your itinerary for you and book that itinerary. Now that's kind of like a next stage of how things may change. Later down the track, you might have like chains of agents kind of negotiating things between one another. I want pet food for my dog. I don't particularly care where I get it from, as long as it meets certain criteria. Go find it. And that might be just like a weekly thing that happens for you. So there's kind of like things that could change over time. But to enable that, like all of you lovely people are going to have to build out that stack of e-commerce to change the web, to make agents, it possible for agents to have a secure time there. And we're also going to have to change the AIs a lot to make them more secure, to make that possible. So this is going to take years, I think, even though the possibilities at the frontier will always be way faster than that. If you'd like any help with it, we're here to help. But it was a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.
I am so happy that we all got to have this conversation today. And I just want you all to remember that this group is going to be, whether you like it or not, my friends, whether you like it or not, this group is going to be that vanguard, those people on the front lines who are going to do this. When we look back in 5 or 10 years, you might have hoped to forget all the time that you wasted listening to me bark at you from this microphone in my ranch here. But I can guarantee you that this crew is going to be tight and going to be making those changes. I'm so blessed for the opportunity to get these kind of things together, to be with you, to hear from you, to learn from you. And Jono, thank you for blessing us with your time. Thank you for everybody for coming out and just really, brightening up my week every week. Thank you. Next week, we have a very special Fraudcast with a very special guest who might be in the room right now, who might be hosting this Fraudcast to do some really fun things. Her name is Jenna Rivera. You know her very well. So we're going to have a blast with that. Stay tuned in the Slack channel for what that's all about. This is a real, this is taking collaboration and putting it on steroids, my friend. We're going all the way up. But until next time, it has been a blast. It has been a blessing. It has been an absolute treat to spend this time with you. We went into overtime. I've got doctor's notes for you if you need to give them to your boss as to where you were for these last 15 minutes. I'll be seeing y'all in Vegas. I might be seeing y'all in Phoenix next week. Maybe Toronto in a couple of weeks. I might see you at the Amarillo airport. Who knows? But until then, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. You know where to find Jono. You know where to find Nicole, Alexa, Maddie. You know where to find Allie. You know where to find Emma, Ryan, Ben, Shelly, Robert, Delana, Riley, Paula, Bradley, Ian, Marcy, Justin, Jamie, Jared, Blaze, Becca. I might have said Becca twice. You know where to find us. You know where to find BAUJXF1. That was my grandma's name. Have a great day, y'all. Be good. Go get him. We've got this.
Thanks, guys.